So my name is Sabrina Charlie, and I'm on the green team. I also work out in the PSCs, and we're doing this worm composting seminar. So I'm just going to show you guys how to do this. So does anybody compost right now? Yeah? A little bit. Do you have a yard or?
No, see, with me being in an apartment, we don't have this available to
Right.
us, so I thought I could on the patio, but right now what we're doing is we collect everything,
Yeah.
and we take it to the farmer's market in Vancouver,
cool.
and they have a drop spot, so
Yeah.
you can throw it in there, and
Yeah.
then they'll compost it for you.
Neat.
So I'm hoping that maybe this will kind of be an in-between.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. So that was kind of my reasoning for doing this. I moved out when I was 20, and I moved from a house that had a compost, and then I moved into an apartment building, and we didn't have any composting in the city at that time. I know they have pickups now. So I wanted to be able to compost. A green fact, 30% of our waste that can be composted ends up in the landfill. So this is a good way to help reduce your waste. So yeah, I started about 7 years ago, and it's the same bin. It's been working perfectly ever since, so hopefully I have some knowledge I can pass on to you guys. So what you need, first of all, is obviously a bin. So this is just a typical Rubbermaid bin. Mine looks like a recycling bin, so it has a recycling bin and then a lid on top and a lid on the bottom. I didn't want to buy two bins, so I just got a drainage tray here. And then I got my boyfriend, nice boyfriend, to make these little lifts so that it doesn't sit right in the tray, so it can actually drain. You're going to need a drill. So I pre-drilled so we didn't have to drill here. So you put about 10 to 20 holes in the top, and then about 10 to 20 holes around the side because the worms need air. And then also worms don't like too much moisture, so I put about 6 holes on the bottom, and the ones on the bottom are a lot bigger. You don't want to worry about the worms coming out because the bottom's going to have a lot of water. They're not going to be there, so it's okay to have them quite big. And what else do we need? We need some bedding. So to set up the bin, you need something for them to eat, and it helps create a good carbon base, so it helps create a good pH for the system. So we have some dried leaves and then some newspaper. You want to have newspaper with soy ink. So most newspapers now have a soy ink base. If it comes off your hands, I believe that's an ink you don't want to use. I'm not entirely sure about that. You're going to shred it into little pieces. So the smaller the surface area, the easier it is for them to break it down. You need a little bit of soil. Sandy soil is pretty good, so this is just to get it started. They like the sand inside. It helps them digest a bit. And then you're also going to need a bit of food scraps. So again, the smaller the surface area, the easier it is for them to break it down. This is what you get in the end, which is your compost. So it's very nutrient rich, very good for your garden. You also get in the bottom which is called worm tea, so it will drain out the bottom. You'll have it's kind of very deep brown. And then what I use is a turkey baster, and I suction it out, and then I water my plants with it. I add some water so it's not too what's the word? Thank you. You'll also need a water bottle, and then you need your worms. So these are from my compost at home. So I harvested them last night. So we'll get to those. No, I've got lots.
Can you have too many?
They just sort of die off. So if you have too many, they'll just break down. So this is actually the first time I've ever taken any out in 7 years. I know people say that you're supposed to do that fairly often, but I never have. So we'll get started. And if you guys want to come over to see better, you can. Also try and tilt it a bit. So we're going to start with some of the bedding. You're going to fill your bin about halfway. I pre-dampened this, so you want it to be moist so that it's not sopping wet, but it's like a wrung out sponge.
And can you talk about the newspaper again? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can it only have soy ink?
It's preferable, but I'm not sure. I would go for that, and then, I mean, you can try it later. But I think the actual other ink is bad for the worms.
Okay.
So, add some of that, and then let's add some leaves. And then you're just going to mix it around a bit, create some air. I'm going to add a bit more actually, because it's not enough. You also want to avoid bleached paper, so newspaper is great, but no like white carbon paper that's been bleached. Then just moisten the bedding again so that it's nice and damp and not too wet, because the worms need the moisture to survive, but again, too much moisture and they'll drown. So just a nice damp feeling. If you want to come and feel kind of the consistency, please. Can everybody see in that? Yeah? Okay, let's feel it. So fill your bedding, your bin with bedding about half full.
So could you pretty much use any size container, but it's just, if it's a small container, then it's just half?
Thank you. It depends on how much you're going to be breaking down your food. So this one is about, I think it's about 2 feet in surface area. So they're surface dwellers, so they like to live on the top. Okay. I pulled this off the internet. If you want, so basically if you generate half a pound of food waste, so that's for typically a family of 2, that's half a pound of food waste a day. You want 4 feet in surface area, so it's going to be a little bit bigger. So it says 2 foot by 2 foot bin. So then you're just going to lift it up, just get some air in there. And then we'll do a layer of, I'm going to do a layer of the soil. So I also pre-moisten this so it's not dry. So I'm just going to spread that across the top.
Any special type of soil?
Just pretty much regular soil. Avoid potting soil that has all the extra nutrients in it. So if you have soil in the garden or something like that, it's fine. And then, like I said, it needs to be a little bit sandy. So if it's not sandy soil, then just add a handful of sand. Okay. Let's add this. Okay. Then comes the fun part. If anybody's squeamish, you probably don't want to watch this, but this is where we get to add the worms. So just spread them around a little bit. These are called red wiggler worms. So these are the good guys that help break down your food.
So you can use it for fishing too.
You can.
Pull out a few.
Poor worms.
Sacrifice a few for the good.
Yeah, they kind of feel like my pets, actually. It's a bit odd.
Your babies.
Yeah. I've had them for so long. Well, they're ancestors. So
Yes.
in here, too, so this is the compost. And if you look up really close, you can see the baby worms. So they've just almost hatched.
Oh, the
so there's
little
tons
tiny
in there.
babies. Oh, yeah.
Isn't it cool? So then just spread those guys around. There's some extra bedding. And then to get it started, we want to make sure they have a little bit of food. So we'll add some food scraps. This was my lunch, well, my snack. And I cut up these into smaller pieces. So you basically can put in any kind of kitchen food scrap. You want to avoid in moderation, or use in moderation, anything that's citrus or any type of strong smelling food, so onions, spicy peppers, that kind of thing. You can put them in, just not all the time and not in high quantities.
And I see that's coffee?
This is coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's also tea in here.
Now, would you break up the tea bag, or can you just put it?
You can put the whole tea bag in, yeah. Yeah, and then I saw on the internet just recently, which is really cool, you can put in hair from your hairbrush, pet hair, dry
Really?
it. Yeah.
Oh. That's cool. And
Tried
pet hair
that.
would be,
Pet hair's
yeah.
great, yeah.
Apparently, because it is puffy, it
Yeah.
helps.
Like the aeration.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I got lots of that.
So I'm just going to make sure these guys are nice and moist. Then we'll put another layer of bedding on top. The worms don't like light, so when you get a bin, make sure that it's not see-through. And then when you keep it, make sure it's somewhere that is dark and fairly cool, so they also don't like heat. So I had this inside my house for about 3 years, no smell. And then when I moved to a basement suite, I put it underneath the stairs outside, and it was fine throughout the winter. And then just make sure it doesn't freeze, obviously, because it won't survive that either.
Did you find the compost broke down slower in the winter? No?
No,
Okay. So they're just as active.
yeah. I think here our temperature doesn't change much, so in the shade it's only a few degrees so much, unless it's a really hot day. So now they're on my balcony, close to the building, so it's just quite dry and cool. And then again too, if it is outside, you want to make sure that it's covered so that no water is seeping in through the lid, because obviously then they're going to get too wet. Okay.
What happens if you go on holidays? You just leave them?
Just leave them. It'll be fine.
Don't need a worm sitter?
No, you just feed them before you go. Sometimes I go 2-3 weeks without feeding them. Sometimes I kind of give them a break because I tend to feed them quite a lot. So I just like them to eat, break down, have a vacation. Okay. So then technically you're done. What you would do is put your lid on. So this is about half full. Over time, it's going to come up higher as they start breaking it down. The vermiculite, which is their poo, the worm poo, will then build up inside. So you can harvest that. You just move. If you want to harvest that, you just take it out, put it onto a lid. Again, they don't like light, so what they're going to do is go down to the bottom, and then you can just scoop up the vermiculite or the compost on top, and then you can use that for your plants.
So the compost always stays on top, like the vermiculite, like it just...
No, it'll spread out throughout.
Oh, it'll be
Yeah.
throughout.
But they're normally like wherever the food is.
Right,
Or in the upper layer. Yeah, so they're not going to be down again where it's wet.
right.
And then when you want to feed them, so once you've set up your bin, you're going to leave it for a little while, let them settle in, make sure everything's working properly before you go and put in a whole bunch of food, because then if it doesn't work, it's obviously going to get moldy and not nice. So maybe after 2 or 3 weeks, check them, check them regularly, but check and make sure everything's working, and then start in one corner to feed them. So feed them, say, this or maybe the other yogurt-sized container full of food. Start in one corner. And then the next week go to another corner, and then the other corner, then the other corner. Before you go to the next corner, just make sure, check the other one, make sure they've eaten it. Then go to the other side, and by the time you've got back here, it's been 4 weeks. Hopefully it's all broken down, and then you can just keep going. Does anybody have any questions?
So you only use this for a percentage of your food waste, it's not everything?
I use it probably for 70 to 80%.
And you just have the one bin on the go?
The one bin, yeah. So it's probably this much bigger. Yeah. And like I said, I haven't harvested the vermiculite or anything, so it's quite full. Lots of compost in there. Apparently, if you leave that, I was just researching on the weekend, if you leave that, it can become a toxic environment. I haven't found that there. So, I would suggest I'm going to go home, in the next week or so and do that, and just take some of it out, add some new bedding. When you do feed them, that's a good point. When you do feed them, add about a handful of bedding, maybe the same amount of the food you add, just so that because they're going to keep breaking down the bedding as they're eating the other food.
So did I hear incorrectly? I hope that you have never harvested?
I haven't harvested. I've taken out some compost.
Yeah.
I've never harvested the worms before, so
Okay.
I've never taken out
Okay.
the worms. So
Okay.
they've just done their own thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if anybody saw, so all those mini baby worms, they just keep reproducing. There's tons of them. It's just packed.
And so, sorry, how much can you compost for a household of 2?
A household of 2. Trusty Google says you can about half a pound of food waste a day with a 2 foot by 2 foot bin.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a pretty average amount they were saying for a household. So then obviously you'd multiply that number the more people you have, or have 2 bins. Yeah, and you can, I also saw, instead of doing this here with a tray, you can also do 2 bins. So you just stick this bin inside another, and then it will drain.
Is there anywhere to buy worms?
There is. You can look online, and we also know somebody in the company who sells worms. I'm not sure how much she has, but if you're interested, we can try and get you guys in contact. Yeah, and some communities actually have a worm bin program where you can pay them some money. They give you the whole setup. That's what I did in Vancouver. This is obviously cheaper, and it's kind of fun. We do it. If you have any kids, or set it up together.
And you don't find the worm tea smelly?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not sure if if outside they have eggs being laid with fruit flies, but on the odd occasion I do have a fruit fly problem.
Okay.
But that could just be regular, fruit in the house.
Well, thank you very much, Sabrina, for doing this for us. It's really cool.